for you guys if it's
Yep.
recorded. Okay, so talking about a flinch or anticipation. I sat down and wrote out some notes this morning, which is sort of a consolidation of training that I've done around this area before, and we can just work through it this afternoon and see if any of it works for you guys, especially you, Gideon. Um, So I think the first thing is that we want to classify or define what is a flinch or anticipation. Basically, it's a physiological response to a neurological input to your brain. And the neurological input comes from the tactile feel of your finger on the trigger, where your brain perceives the gun is going to break or fire, where the sear is going to let go and allow the gun to fire, or some other indicator in that process of pressing the trigger sends a message along the neural pathways from your right hand to your brain. And when that neurological impulse arrives there, whether it is right or wrong, your brain, I'm just going to unload my carry gun, your brain starts reacting by moving that wrist down, even though the trigger of the gun, I just want to be very clear about this because I've just taken a live magazine out there, even though the trigger of the gun might at that point not be ready to fire. Anticipation doesn't affect all shooters, and even amongst the shooters that it does affect, it doesn't the same way. When I say we, I've certainly not battled with it in my life, but I have found myself anticipating from time to time. I want to also say to you that there is a difference between anticipating a shot and taking the gun down before it fires, and after the gun has fired, ending up with the gun slightly lower. Okay? That would be a jerk on the trigger, and it's not necessarily responsible for pulling your shots off target if the bullet has already left the muzzle by the time that jerk happens. Okay, so that jerk may just be your physiological response to the actual recoil of the gun, and by the time that you're doing that, the gun has started to recoil already, which means that the bullet has already left the muzzle. Therefore, your jerk is actually not responsible for the poor shot. The degree to which you will find that anticipation or flinch affects you will vary according to some dynamics in your shooting environment. How often you dry fire, what that dry fire is, how often you live fire, the type of handgun that you are shooting. So a shooter that has got a problem with anticipation or flinch is going to find it even more difficult to shoot a pistol that has got a double action first shot, like the CZ P07 or the Berettas or whatever, where it's a double action first shot. Your striker fired pistol has got more travel in its trigger before a single action firearm, like firing a revolver on single action, for instance. So it's very unusual for a shooter that is cocking a revolver and shooting at single action to actually have a flinch, because there is so little warning that if they've got a decent grip and a decent sight picture, there's so little warning before that thing goes off. Before they can actually start pulling it, it's broken. Which is where we want you to get, by the way, on pistols. So the objective today is to find out what's going on between your hand and your brain, okay? And where the disconnect is coming in, and if it is an anticipation or flinch. And again, it's not to be confused with the jerk. So to dig a bit deeper into what flinching is, it's a pre-ignition movement of the pistol Flinching is a pre-ignition movement of the pistol because your brain thinks that the gun is already under recoil, but it's actually not yet fired, or at least the bullet has not yet left the muzzle. So it's that pre-ignition movement that is your flinch, and that's what's pulling you off target. Okay, and the faster that you shoot, the less time will elapse between that flinch and the bullet going off. So a new shooter, a novice shooter, might be going nice and slowly. No, he's not under any time pressure, no buzzer. Ek gaan nou skiet. Okay? Ek gaan nou skiet. Where when you are on a course of fire, on a sport shooting course, you're going to be working like this. So the time that's elapsed between you pressing the trigger, breaking the shot at 100% of the trigger pull and the gun moving down is very truncated, which makes it difficult to diagnose and difficult to see. So in this motion of bringing the gun down or it fires, it is very much possible for you to pull your shots down. The other thing is that's important is that your instructor must also be able to relate to this. There are a lot of instructors, not a lot, but there are instructors that either have never had a problem with flinching or they don't experience the flinching to the same degree that the students do. And so they battle to understand it. One of the ways that I dealt with flinching, and it wasn't really that much of a flinch, but I caught myself out sometimes with a flinch, certainly in the earlier days of my shooting, is I started teaching myself that I liked the recoil. I looked forward to the recoil. Because what's happening here is when that trigger breaks, you are having a controlled explosion right in front of your face. At the same time, you are expecting your brain to keep that hand nice and still and stable for that shot or for the follow-up shots while this controlled explosion is going on in front of your face. And your brain is saying to your hand, hey, I don't like this controlled explosion business at all. I'm going to try and manage it. Okay? So, because one of the effects of this controlled explosion is the gun is doing this. Therefore, I don't smart that. I'm going to try and control it. And that's how the flinch starts manifesting itself. So we'll discuss some strategies this afternoon, and then we will select what works for you guys best. So what you will have noticed with your own guns is that when you reach, you know your gun already. And you can pick up any gun. You can pick up a strange gun on the range the next time you're on the range, one of my guns if you like. It won't take you long to work out where that trigger breaks. Okay? And the moment that you have worked that out from a tactile point of view and you've got used to that gun, you've got an idea, or you think you've got an idea of where that trigger is going to break. And it's a very specific, and so it's obviously specific to every gun. And so the example I'll give you is when I train first-time shooters, people that come here for competencies, or sometimes I have people that come here for fun shooting. I teach them how to stand, how to grip the gun, how to work the sights. Some of them have never fired a gun in their life. And the first shot is in the center of the X. The second shot is in the center of the X. The third shot is in the X ring. And by the time the fourth shot comes along, generally 9 times out of 10, those groups will start pulling down out of the X ring. I'm just going to get rid of this sorry. I'm just going to quickly let how's it, Quibus? Sorry, I'm busy on a Zoom call with Gideon and Mint. You guys are welcome to jump on if you want. It's just about flinching and anticipation. But otherwise, I'll call you later. Okay. So the first time shooters will pull that down until they're pulling right off the target, simply because their brain has now started working that and started building the flinch in. Okay, and it from that point it then takes time to get back up. And I normally say to them things like, all you've got to do is concentrate on holding the muzzle completely still, maintain your sight picture, press the trigger straight backwards, hold the gun, and let the gun shoot when it's ready. Your job is to hold the gun still and focus on the sights. It is the gun's job to shoot the bullet when it's ready. You can't tell it when to shoot. You have got no idea. You cannot see what's going on in there with that sear and that trigger as to when it's going to release. And generally by doing that, I get them up, and what happens is we see the next shot comes back into the ring and the second shot stays in the ring, and then I know that they have now started recognizing that pre-movement. The gun's going to go off, bang. Okay, you can see it quite clearly, bang. And I say, if you see that movement, stop, refocus, and then press the trigger. So it works for them, but they're not under any time pressure. In sport shooting, you are under time pressure, and it's difficult to truncate this. So what I want to show you this afternoon, particularly you, Gideon, is a way to practice this very slowly until you start truncating it and speeding it up. What else did I write here? So the nice thing, the good news is that when you are shooting your typical isosceles stance and you're shooting a two-handed stance, your support hand is immune from the brain's input. The brain might be telling you, oh, there's a controlled explosion coming, I'm going to do this. The support hand is not on that in that same party. It's not even in the same book. Okay? The neural pathway that's running from the trigger finger to the brain is in the strong hand. It's not here. This hand's job. So this is your backstop here. If this guy is doing his work, even if the brain is trying to start that movement, okay, it can be countered with the left hand, which is why when I train you guys, I encourage you to use your left hand or your support hand as firmly as you want to. There is no such thing as over gripping with the support hand. You cannot disadvantage your shooting in any way by gripping as much as you want to. You cannot disadvantage yourself at all by gripping nice and hard with the support hand. All you can do is provide something that is really strong, that is impervious to the message between your brain and your hand. Okay, so proper support hand grip is critical. Obviously, that is not going to help you when you are when you're shooting strong hand only or support hand only. Okay. So what we'll do in this afternoon, Gideon, what I want you to do when you go out of this thing, you'll have the notes on this. I'm going to send you the recording. Start with the concept of a crawl, walk, run around your trigger operation. Okay. And what we're basically going to do is I want you can do this in dry fire, and you can go to your shooting range, your little shooting spot that you've got there at your house, and you can go and shoot there as well. I want you to start. So let's work out that the trigger travel on the firearm from no travel whatsoever to where the gun fires, let's call it 100%. And as I said earlier, what's happening is your brain, you're starting to take up the slack. I know this gun, I don't know it very well, I don't shoot it very often, but I've got an idea where it's going to break, but I can't, there, it just broke. I actually thought it wouldn't break just then. I thought I was going to pull longer. So you might think that you are at 90%, and your brain might think that you are at 90%, 10% away from the trigger breaking. And there's not a lot of movement. Look at that. It's about, and that's not even a centimeter of movement at the bottom. So you're talking about a millimeter and a half for the last 10%. And you might think, oh, I'm at 90%. Meanwhile, you are at 50%. And what's happening is your brain is saying, hey, we're on the last 10%. This gun is going to, this controlled explosion is going to happen any minute in front of me now. I think I'm going to start. It's just about there anyway, so I may as well start bringing in my safety mechanism. Meanwhile, you're not there. Okay, so what I want you to do when you trigger, and this, think about it like at the pace of the sun rising, infinitely slowly, so that you're sitting on your stoop and you're watching the shadow or the sun coming across the shadow in your stoop. Start off. It doesn't matter if it takes 20 seconds. Now I'm starting to press. And I want you to count to 20 while you're doing that, and think about the gun firing when you get to 20. If the gun hasn't fired by the time you get to 20, then you can give it a good pull. But I want you to, so I'm gonna start now. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Click. So my brain still thought I had 13 counts left before the gun went off, and the gun went off at 7. If you guys can see the trigger there. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm doing it infinitely slowly. But I told my brain it can go up until 20. If the gun hasn't fired by the time I've got to 20, then I need to reevaluate my trigger press. But what we're doing is you are tricking your brain into thinking that the trigger press is much later, that the break is much later than it is. You are severing that neural pathway that tells the brain to start bringing movement into the wrist. Okay? On a shooter that has started to recognize that, so you get the thing, and as they think I'm going now, and as they think it's going to break, but it's not there yet, they start going down. Have a look, Gideon. The gun starts going down like this. Okay, we call this porpoising. Okay, because it's like going under the water, like a porpoise going up and down. So the moment that they see that happening, when you've started getting experience, you will start, even if it's a tiny movement, you'll start recognizing it. So whoops, come back up. In the training that you're going to do here to fix this anticipation problem, work on the crawl, walk, run. You don't have time when you are standing in front of, and this is not a problem. It can be a problem on very close shots, but that, I think, and I'm convinced, like for you, Mint, if you're shooting into a hard cover on a target at 5 meters or something, that's more a function of not having a properly built grip, not good enough support hand strength, and perhaps not a good sight picture or a good position that you are shooting from. Might be round cover or whatever. But if you are on a target of 12 to 15 meters, or let's say 10 meters, 10 meters, nice big open target, no restricted target, you don't have, in a competition, in a match, you don't have 4 seconds to make that shot. 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004. You don't have 4 seconds to make that one shot, because you're going to end up taking 8 seconds to shoot one target. Okay, so you are obviously under pressure, an amount of pressure to speed up that response. But that is going to come to the fore after a lot of practice at a slower pace. Right, that covers. is happening after. So if you pull the trigger, so let's say you've got your 100% movement, and 34, let me sort of write here, 34% is after you. Sorry, I was writing fast earlier, now the brain. So if you're pulling the trigger at 50 or 60%, what's happening is you had 30 to 40% of travel left before the gun fired, and that's when that's coming down. Okay, so I'm just reiterating the value of that counting. Okay, that's one of the best tips that I can give you, and you will get this right through consistent dry fire. And if you think about, for instance, pushing a cupboard over, let's say, or you're standing in front of something, let's say it's like a cupboard, or even a target on a stand, and you're standing with your arms against the target, and I say to you, when I let the buzzer go, I want you to push the target over, or I have you standing 3 feet back from the target, or arm's length back from the target, but you can still reach it. And I say to you, when I start the buzzer, I want you to push the target over. What we're doing with this exercise is teaching you, Gideon, to coordinate the contact with that target at the end of your extension. Okay? So in other words, when you get to the end of your extension, the trigger must break immediately. This is where that extend, prep and press drill is so important. When you go out and you do live fire, practicing what I'm asking you to practice today, if you are not getting, let's say out of 20 shots, if you are not getting 1 or 2 that are going off before you are completely ready for them to go off, then the exercise is not working for you. You need to be pushing that boundary in terms of the prepping of that trigger as you're moving forward, taking up the whole 99% in the extension. The whole 99% in the extension while you are still guaranteeing yourself a decent sight picture. Okay, so go out and do your extend. First of all, do your extend, prep and press in dry fire 100 times, 200 times, 300 times. It doesn't matter. Slowly, after we've done the counting thing, which I'm going to come back to, and then go out onto the range and again do it slowly. It's still a coordination, no matter how slowly you're going. 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004. It can still be a slow movement, provided that you stay honest for me, that as the gun gets to the point where you are no longer extending it, that trigger is breaking. Watch, can you hear my gun, the trigger of my gun?
Yeah.
Okay, so watch here. You will notice that as the movement stops, you will hear the trigger. Okay. The better you start managing that, the earlier you can start shooting. You can even shoot while you're still a little bit coming forward because you've already got a good enough sight picture. Okay. That will come with time. And that's why I am reiterating that the fact of having, while you're doing that extend, prep and press, as you start your extend, prep and press, get this finger onto the trigger, take up that slack, and it doesn't matter. So what if you have a discharge that is 100th or 200th or whatever of a second, a tenth of a second earlier than you expected it? So what? You're pointing downrange. You're pointing at a target. Even if it's in a sport shooting match, it doesn't matter. Nobody can give you have anything to say about it. So allow yourself an unexpected discharge. Figure out where the trigger will break. You don't know where the break is, and that's okay. Yeah, so there's no ways, even for somebody that knows a gun very well, that you can say, especially with the striker fired gun, where you can't see an external hammer moving or any indication that anything's happening there. In a striker fired gun, no matter how well you know the gun, you cannot with 100% accuracy to the 100th of a second say the trigger is going to break exactly now. I can't. I can say it. I'm going to press the trigger and I'm going to tell you when I think the trigger is going to break. I think it's going to break. Yeah. Okay. So I was close. I said I think it's going to break now. I didn't get the word now out, and the trigger broke. So you cannot get it 100%. And if you can get that into your mind, that you stop anticipating that break, it's going to interrupt that neural pathway. But the strongest thing that I'm coming back to, coming again, counting to 20, 1, 2, 3, and I'm actually going to try and make it longer. I'm really going to go as slowly as I possibly can now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm still pulling 6, 7, 7. You will recall that the first time I pulled the trigger, it broke at 7 as well. I can't get past 7. Let's try. And I'm pulling very slowly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8. So I'm thinking, my brain's thinking, I'm going to 20 and it's breaking at 7 or 8. Surprise! By the time the flinch comes along, the bullet's gone on its intended target. Okay, so the other thing that I want you to try, you've got dummy rounds, Gideon.
Yeah.
Your dummy rounds are very important. I want you to load yourself when you go and do live fire. I want you to load yourself a number of dummy rounds. Don't look at them when you're loading them, and take the magazines and mix them up so that you have got no idea whether a magazine has got 4 dummy rounds or 1 dummy round or no dummy rounds in it. But preferably there should be a number of dummy rounds in that magazine. That will illustrate to you when that click goes off and there's a click instead of a bang, it's going to illustrate to you whether you still have your flinch and to what degree you have the flinch. And when that dry click happens, it's going to be very important to stop there and then. Like I told you guys about looking at your mistakes when we spoke about this last training session, stop there and then, hold the gun still and look at that sight picture and see where that front sight is in relation to where it was before you started pulling the trigger. So and they call it ball and dummy. The instructors call it ball. Ball ammunition is your copper jacketed ammunition. It's what the military calls ball ammunition, ball and dummy. And it will show the flinch. It will also show you how hard your support hand is working or not working. And you will be able to see whether there's a movement before or after the trigger pull, after the dry click. Okay, by using the ball and dummy method. And the final advantage, the other advantage of using the dummy rounds is that it's also, when you're doing live fire, it's also going to teach you more malfunction clearance. So the moment that you get a click, I want you to just, like I said, confirm where the sight was when you had the click, but then go into your malfunction drill. Tap, rack, and carry on. So it's a nice way of also bringing the malfunction drill in. The last thing that I want to say to you before I just summarize about the counting again is that there is a notion among a lot of instructors that if you are pulling down and to the left, you are a right-hand shooter with too much finger on the trigger. If you are pulling down and to the right, you are a left-handed shooter with too much finger on the trigger. And then you will hear the instructors telling you, use just the end of your trigger finger, just that part there. If we find that your flinch is difficult to get rid of, that it is persistent, one of the things that I'm going to suggest is that you start experimenting with how much finger you put on the trigger, because the closer you get to the end of your finger, the more tactile sensation you get on it. Okay, it's like if you want to feel something, whether it's smooth or rough, you don't take your hand and use this part of your finger to feel it. You use the end of your finger to experiment and experience what is that surface feels like. So you may find that if there's too much tactile feedback coming to you, that's causing your brain to say this trigger's about to go, use more of your finger on the trigger, provided that you are supporting with the support hand, because as this finger goes down from the tip to the bottom, in tactile terms, it's clever here and it gets more stupid as it gets to the bottom. So the further down you go, the less tactile experience you're going to get from that finger. And then just to revisit the thing, so what I want you to do is to start, we know that you're going to use the dummy rounds and we know you're going to do it, but I want you to sit, you can sit down, you can stand up, it doesn't matter. As long as you can get yourself into a proper grip and you're starting off with your two-handed grip, I want you to choose a very fine target. You can actually do it against the wall if you want to, the wall drill, or sitting in your lounge aiming at something the size of an alarm clock or a light switch on the other side of the room is also a very small target, and it's quite precise in terms of where your front sight is. And then I want you to say, now, this gun is going to fire between 15 and 20 counts. And I'm going to count. And as I start pressing the trigger, I'm going to start counting. And I think it's going to fire between 15 and 20 counts. 1, 2, 3. I was trying to slow it down. So I'm really going to see what I can do. So my finger's off the trigger. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm squeezing it so gently and so precisely. And that, I think, is going to carry your brain. It's going to interrupt that neural pathway. And if you do that 50 times, okay? And then start extending it while you're counting. 1, 2. So now I'm going to extend, and I only want to shoot when I get to 20. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. And you can start playing with that, Gideon, remembering what I said to you, that I want you to get to the trigger breaking when you are on extension. So you can go out, you can say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. Gone at 3. That would have been an unexpected discharge. Good, because it means that I'm pushing the limits. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that, I'm convinced that if you put a lot of effort into this, it's going to make a difference on that anticipation issue. So now I'm finished chatting for a while. I'm going to give you an opportunity. Ask me questions or tell me if you think it's been useful to you, if it's something that you want to try.
It sounds like it will help me, Jonathan. What's happening is I've managed to used to flinch with both hands, right hand and left hand. So I've managed to transfer the dry fire. So dry fire now, I can manage all my hands without the sights moving. If I'm dry firing, it doesn't happen. As soon as I go to the range, it happens. So what I've done, I'm taking dry fire to the range now. So if I go to the range, I'll dry fire, dry fire, dry fire, dry fire, and then live fire to try and break that. And then when I shoot with my left hand, now I can shoot with my both hands. It's not a problem. Right hand, it's a lot better than it used to be. My left hand moves a lot from left to right, not up and down, but from left to right. So much that I miss the target. Now, initially, when I get to the range, it's bad, really bad. And then I'll dry fire, dummy live round. It'll get better, but I can't get it to go away. It's just, and I've been doing this now for close on 4 weeks, and it's not getting better. So I'm not sure why. Your sound's gone. You've muted yourself, I think.
So the guy was making noise in the background. Yeah. So your issue is with your support hand mainly.
Just support hand. Right hand and both hands I've managed to control it, but left hand I'm not getting better, and I don't know why.
Okay. And if you stand against the wall with the left hand in dry fire.
Perfect. I can keep it dead still.
Perfect. Okay. So it's definitely the neurological impulse that's coming in there.
How's it going from left to right? I've tried to use less and less finger. I haven't tried to put more finger in. I thought maybe I'm hooking it to the left.
But before you try changing the placement of the finger pad on the trigger, I want you to start working on that concept of counting with your support hand. Okay. So start counting with the support hand, and you can do an extension with your support hand, or you can do a transition and count. And count and take it slowly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's still breaking for me at 5.
It's common for people to move horizontally when they flinch. Most things I've seen say flinches up and down. It doesn't go from left to right, but mine goes from left to right. Sometimes from right to left. Sometimes it'll go the other way.
So I don't think that you should get stuck on whether you're going vertically or horizontally or diagonally when you're anticipating the shot. But I think that what I also want to encourage you to do, just in case you're not doing it, is to completely engage all of the tensile strength that you've got in your forearm. Lock your wrist in, by the way. So take your wrist like there's something else that you can do. Seeing we're talking about the left hand. Take the left hand, put it straight out like that. So the thumb, you can see my thumb is up in the air. Do that with me. Put your thumb up and put your hand out like that. Your thumb's up in the air. Now, I want you to point your thumb down flat until the thumb is horizontal, like that. Now, look at your wrist. Feel the strength in your wrist with the thumb there compared to where the thumb up. Okay, so can you see the potential for movement in recoil or pre-ignition movement? Putting the thumb flat is your way of engaging that wrist. Okay, so when you're shooting with your left hand, make a point now, okay, of getting the grip and then putting the thumb flat down, okay, so that you are engaging, you're basically engaging that. It's difficult for me to show it now. I could do it properly on the range, but basically I want you to engage that wrist properly so that you've got a firm wrist there. Okay, very important. You can do this much more easily, obviously, when you are shooting two-handed, and it might be something that you want to keep in mind, is basically getting that thumb down like that so that you've got that wrist at 45 degrees. Okay. But work on your left hand, Gideon. Start right from your shoulder, about engaging all of your tensile strength in your forearm, locking your wrist, getting a really good grip on the gun. And the other thing that I think I've mentioned to you in training before is to think about putting your finger against the bottom of the trigger guard as you are pressing the trigger. I've told you that. I see you nodding your head. Okay, that certainly gives you it gives you a bench line of to where you are on your trigger press, but it also stabilizes your trigger finger. Much easier to do that for me than sitting high up on the trigger somewhere and then pressing it. Okay, so I hope that's been useful. Miant, is there anything that you wanted to add or ask?
Miant's gone.
No, he's here.
Oh, he's there. Oh.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah. Is there anything, Miant, that you want to add or ask?
Not at the moment. I just had to take a quick call. But yeah, I don't know if I'm flinching or not. And that I'm listening to all of this now, and it makes me think what I'm busy doing on the range, where those mystery shots are going, the accuracy issues that I've got. I've seen specifically if I shoot with somebody else's gun, like when I shot with your Beretta the other day, it's like there's an instant flinch that, with especially if it's a different gun, there's an instant flinch. I can actually feel it before I even pull the trigger. It's just weird, with a different gun specifically.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that's definitely, and that is why, probably, because you might find that your trigger is lighter than the gun that you had just had the flinch with, somebody else's gun, and your brain is telling you, because of all its experience, this gun should be shooting by now. So I'm going to now bring in my recoil management beforehand. So I think it just emphasizes that point. But maybe you also just want to have a look at that idea.
Definitely.
Yeah, and see how it works. So I hope that's been useful, guys.
Thank you very much.
Okay. And we
Jonathan,
will
what
chat.
caliber